All right.
All right, we're live. So tonight we're joined by Dr. Donald Molnar. Dr. Molnar is an internal medicine doctor by day and a paranormal investigator by night. He also does a lot of research into NDEs, near-death experiences, and I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about it. So I guess we could jump right in. How did you become interested in the paranormal?
Well, it goes all the way back to when I was to childhood. I've had interesting things happen. Some of my earliest memories, I can remember strange things happening, and kind of all my life had different things happening. Seeing things, hearing things, feeling things. One of the things I think that kind of helped it be prominent in my life is my family was pretty open to it. My mom and dad were both pretty open to it. My dad was more of your kind of your Bigfoot, UFO, ghost hunting kind of guy, more the typical paranormal guy. My mom was more about the spiritual religious side with angels and heaven and, premonitions and getting signs and everything comes in threes, that kind of thing. So I kind of grew up in a pretty open family setting about, the paranormal. In fact, we used to sit around with the family and talk about, did you have any experiences? Did you have any experiences? And so that kind of opened the door for me being really open to it. And like I said, it pretty much, every place I've kind of lived or been, I've had strange things happen to me. Some places have been more paranormal activity, other places a little less, but it seems like almost any place I've lived or that kind of thing, I've had things happen. So that's why I got the name Haunted MD, because I feel like I'm kind of like a haunted person or haunted physician in a sense. And then so that my whole life experience and everything growing up kind of made me open to it. And then what got me into investigating was I realized about early 2000s, there were all these shows, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted and Paranormal State. I used to watch all those like religiously. And I was like, wow, you can investigate these things. And then I'm originally from Ohio, but I live in Charlottesville, Virginia now. I moved to Virginia in 2009. And I was working at one of the hospitals a little farther out than where I work now. It was around 2011-ish, 12-ish, somewhere around there. One of the nurses came back. I was working night shift. One of the nurses came back, and she was talking about how she had just investigated St. Albans in Radford, Virginia. And I was like, wait a minute, what? You got to investigate? And she was telling me all these stories. And so, yeah, there's a local team here in town, and they're actually looking for people to join. So I met the founders of that team, and I joined that. That was Twisted Paranormal Society. So I joined them in 2012 just to kind of have a chance to validate all the experiences that I had and to kind of learn more. And then, and then once I was on the team, you start catching evidence and it just kind of keeps you going. You catch an EVP or you see a shadow, it just fuels that fire to keep going. And then kind of moving along the timeline. And then around 2018, I decided that I wanted to take a little different twist to it and kind of break out on my own and talk and have an opportunity to combine the medical stuff with the paranormal stuff. And then that's when I kind of really got into the other stuff. Up to that point, I was more about the ghost investigating and all that stuff. And then once I started my Haunted MD type page or Haunted MD project or whatever, that's when I got really interested in near-death experiences and deathbed visions and all those kind of things. So it was kind of how I got to where I'm at now.
Right on.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So have you ever experienced like any strange occurrences while you're in the room with someone who was passing?
Yeah. There's a couple interesting stories. And one of the stories I share is, we do, are you guys in healthcare at all or medical stuff at all or?
No.
No.
So
I'm not going to lie.
No.
So a code blue or a code is when somebody's, theoretically dead or almost dead.
I've had that happen before.
Yeah.
I had my appendix out in the room next to me when I was in the hospital. They called for a code blue.
Oh, no way, man. Were you freaking out? Like what in the world?
I was beyond freaking out.
Did you see everybody come running in or?
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. Yeah. So that's basically what a code blue is. So, and everybody has different jobs. So as a doctor, my job is to kind of run the code, make sure that, assign people positions, this person give meds, this person do the shocking, this person do CPR, this person put a tube in. So you kind of coordinate all that and you got to kind of try to figure out what's going on and call the shots and all this other stuff. So usually we're standing at the edge of the bed or at the foot of the bed, facing up towards the patient's or looking up towards the patient's head. And we were working on this person. He had been on dialysis and they lost his blood pressure lost his pulse. He stopped breathing. So we immediately started doing CPR, worked on him for about 10, 15 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden I felt this like rush of cold air, electricity, energy. It was kind of hard to describe. It was like a breeze with electrical charges in it. It kind of like came from behind me and rushed through me and around me into the patient. And then right at that time, we got a pulse back. So he got his pulse back, and then we slowly were able to get him to regain consciousness to some degree. Unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to him because where I work now, we're like a satellite hospital to the big hospital in town. So we usually, when somebody's that sick or something like that happens, we usually send them over to the main hospital, because when that kind of event happens, something seriously medical is going on that needs more evaluation than we can do where we're at. But to me, it felt like his energy or his consciousness or soul rushed into him. It's kind of like, if you've read about NDEs, people talk about, they're having this experience and all of a sudden they rush back into their body. And that's all I could think about was it felt like that he was rushing back past me or something. So.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing.
That's intense.
And the thing to know about me is I'm pretty skeptical. I'm open-minded. Like I believe spirits exist. I believe in the afterlife, but I'm always a little skeptical. I always got to convince myself, almost to a fault, almost to a point of, maybe throwing stuff away or not accepting stuff, almost too skeptical, I think sometimes. Yeah. But I always do have that little bit of skepticism. So when I tell you these stories, it's something I had to convince myself of as being something, legitimate. So.
Well, we're the same way. I'm extremely skeptical from what we do, right? You have to analyze everything. You can't just say every breeze is a ghost, every knock on the door is a ghost, every bang on the floor is a ghost. You have to analyze it, right? So,
it's true. You guys investigate too, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at your pages.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been a while though.
Yeah. COVID kind of shut us down. So
I know. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Hopefully this summer we'll be looking up, right?
Yeah.
So your 12 steps of NDEs. I was watching your videos, and you stated that some people experience all of them. Some will only experience one, or a couple. What's the most common one that people experience? Like if a person had to just have one, what's the most common?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me tell you, first of all, the 12 steps, it's something I read about and researched. It's actually Dr. Jeffrey Long wrote the book. It's Evidence of the Afterlife. So it's kind of his 12 steps, but I kind of thought it'd be cool to go through each one. It's tricky because, in his book, he kind of goes through and he gives percentages. One of the ones that seems to happen quite a bit is the out-of-body experience. Like 75% of people who have near-death experiences experience that. The other thing that people talk about is amazing sense of love and peace and happiness. That seems to be something real common too. So, if I had to pick out of the 12, it's probably the amazing sense of peace and love and having like amazing senses that you can see things more clearly than you could ever see them before. And then probably after that would be the out-of-body experience.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Now, the thing about NDEs, it's interesting to think about, is not everybody has a good one either. Some people have some bad experiences. I don't know the exact percentages on it. You're more common to have a pleasant NDE than a bad one, but some people do report having, like painful, demons were attacking them, kind of thing. So,
Wow.
What do you feel about, I know this happened, I've seen it personally myself. My grandfather did it. My grandfather was on his deathbed, and we were all called into the hospital. We were told last rites were going to happen in the whole 9 yards, right? He was gone.
Yes.
But he never had a chance to say goodbye. So the next day we got called back to the hospital, and we got there. He was sitting up in the bed, flirting with the nurses and talking to us and goofing around and carrying on. And it's almost like he got this extra burst of energy from we don't know where, and he got to say goodbye to us. And with that night, he had passed away. And my wife's neighbor, he was living there, I guess, for about 4 years. He would always come over and say hello, but he'd never come in the house. He would just say hi or whatever. So that the one day, for some reason, he came in, sat down, had a cup of tea, a bite to eat, went home that night, and passed away. Do you find that strange? Like, could that be tied in somehow to, like, I'm not saying like an NDE, but almost like something's giving you that last chance to say your goodbyes, right?
Right. Now you're talking about the experience your grandfather had when he got more alert and all that?
Yeah. Like, what could possibly, he was on his deathbed. Last rites were given, and the next day he's sitting up in bed.
Yeah, that happens.
As if he's going home. Does that happen?
That happens a lot, man. I actually call it the last stand effect. It's kind of like, it's like your body's last attempt. And it's actually tricky because, one of the things I do as a hospital-based internal medicine doc is, we deal with people from the time they're age 18 to the time they pass away. And I end up having to do a lot of end-of-life care where you're helping people pass on, it's their last day or two. And you end up talking to the family and saying, hey, I don't think they're going to survive. Do you want to make them comfortable? Do they want to be comfortable? What was their wishes? All that kind of thing. So eventually you decide to make them comfortable, right? You get everybody on the same page, and all of a sudden they rally. The patient rallies. And I've been out of training for about 20 years now, and it still gets me because you think, you kind of tell everybody, hey, come visit. I think this is it. Then they'll perk up for about 24 hours, and then they taper off and end up passing away. I'm not sure what's happening then, but there's definitely I call it the last stand effect. It's like their last chance, but they'll be like wide awake and interactive. And even people with dementia will seem to have good cognition or able to think clearly when they weren't able to think clearly before. And there's actually, I forget the name of it, in parapsychology research, there's a word for like regaining of like your normal senses and all that. Another thing too, I thought you were going to talk about is the deathbed vision. But there's actually a term for when people get this clarity, like they weren't talking and they were all confused, and all of a sudden they're clear as a bell for about a short period of time, so you can say goodbye. Now I don't know.
I was going to get
curious.
To that one.
Yeah, so it's curious whether if it's a physiological thing, because it might be the body's last chance of dumping adrenaline, dumping steroids in your system, and maybe that fires you up, or it's possible it could be paranormal too. It's the person's consciousness is having a chance to say goodbye and all that stuff. So, but it happens. It's actually you're the first person to bring that up. It happens a lot. We talk about it. It's like the last stand effect, and it does make you second guess yourself as a doc. You're like, maybe I made the wrong call here. Maybe they're not dying, and so, but it does happen. Definitely happens.
I couldn't believe with my grandfather. It was so shocking to think. We all went home crying. We were planning for the next day, and then we get a phone call that he's wide awake, looking to go home, wanting to go to the bungalow, all this sort of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, right after he said his last goodbyes, he started to decline, and then that night he passed away.
That's what happens too. The other curious thing that happens, and you probably heard stories of this, but we see it a lot, is that people will hang on for somebody else to show up, for something to happen. Now, they'll either hang on and be with you and alert, or they'll be out of it, but they're just not passing away. And it seems like they're waiting for like that, somebody from a distance to come visit or something to finalize. It's interesting. It does happen. And I don't have a good explanation for that. We see that a lot. It's like they had to wait for the family member from Florida to come in or whatever, and so, yeah, it definitely happens.
Cool.
That's crazy.
So have you ever had a patient that's had a near-death experience that they've actually brought up to you before?
Yeah. So one of the things I try to do, I kind of feel out the patient and the family and kind of get an idea where they're at with things, especially if they're near death. And I'll kind of just chat with them and talk about stuff. And, it's surprising. A lot of people are really open to it, and they're, willing to talk about it. And in fact, I've had families contact me, through my Haunted MD page or through work, and they'll tell me about like after death experiences they had, like lights acting crazy and all that kind of stuff. But no, so the reason why I'm telling you that is eventually I'll bring it up to people like, hey, did anything funny happen to you when you were, when you were almost dead or you were dead? And some people can remember, some people don't. I had one person, kind of talk about he went out of his body. I had crashed his car. He ended up being paralyzed below the neck. And he was with us for a long time where I work. And he had said he had left his body and saw everybody working on him and kind of, had that warm feeling, of peace and love. He didn't get a chance to really see any of his loved ones because he said he ended up back in his body pretty quick. But he did have an experience. And I had another lady I was talking with. She didn't have an NDE as part of her illness that she had just had, but she said that she had one like 20 years prior when she was delivering her daughter. She had, had passed away temporarily during childbirth. And she also remembers seeing people work on her and kind of floating around the room, and actually going through the tunnel and seeing her, her mom who had passed away before her and all that kind of stuff. And then she can't remember if she said she had a choice or not, that she was back in her body, but yeah, she had told me that. So it's not real common. And sometimes I think patients are reluctant. I had one gentleman who ended up on a pretty serious life support, pretty much heart and lung bypass was like the last thing we can do before somebody passes away. And he survived all that, and he wouldn't tell me. So I don't know if he had a bad experience or if it was whatever experience he had was shocking, but he goes, yeah, I had some stuff happen, man, but I don't want to talk about it. So I kept trying to work him a little bit. I'm like, come on, man. You know, I'm a doc and I do this ghost hunting and, you know, that stuff. But he wouldn't tell me, so I don't know. But his girlfriend pulled me aside and said, yeah, he was pretty rattled by whatever happened. He just doesn't want to talk about it. And so, yeah, so I don't know. So, yeah, kind of a mix of things there.
Jeez.
Oh, okay. Wow. So what do the families think when you walk up to them and you say, you know, I'm Dr. Molnar, but I also do paranormal investigating? Like, do they, I know from my own experience, when we first started, people were kind of like, yeah, okay there, bud. But now everybody's like, oh my God, you do that? Can we go with you? When is your next event? It seems like it's more mainstream now, right? So do you find it was harder for you, you know, 5-10 years ago to approach a family and say, this is what you do?
Well, you know, so I didn't,
compared to what it is right now.
You know, it might have been. I didn't really bring it up much until like the last couple of years or so, because that's, you know, where I didn't really start investigating until 2012-ish. So, you know, probably started bringing it up since I started my Haunted MD thing in 2018. It seems now that most people are pretty open to it, and it may be like you're saying because of the shows and it's so popular. And you know, people are like, are you on TV? You know, like, well, no, I'm not really on TV. You know, I've done a couple things here and there, but they're really into it. And a lot of times, you know, they'll start following my Haunted MD page. Like the one family I had, you know, I talked to them and their mom was dying and she ended up passing away. Then they actually reached out to me and they, first of all, said, thanks for being so open-minded about all that stuff. Then they started telling me all these things happening around the house with the lights flickering and smells and birds acting strange. So it's kind of cool to get the follow-up because, you know, it's after death communication is a big thing that kind of, you know, argues for the survival of consciousness or the soul and all that stuff. So people are pretty open to it. I haven't had any bad responses to it. I kind of feel them out though. If somebody seems like they're really, you know, type A and really, you know, like, you know, really hardcore, not going to really want to hear about, then I won't bring it up and stuff like that.
Straight shooters.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, man. But most people are pretty open. And another question people ask too is my colleagues. You know, a lot of my colleagues are real open to it too. And, you know, they won't talk out in public necessarily, but everybody comes up to me with stories, all kinds of different docs, even docs I know that I thought would not even be, they would probably laugh at me about this. They come up and say, hey, Don, I mean, I had this story about this and that and this and that. And hey, I saw you on TV and oh, this and that and this and that. And, you know, so even docs and then the nurses are real open to it. Nurses talk pretty openly, especially the hospice nurses who are dealing with end-of-life care. They have tons of stories about things like you're talking about and near-death experiences and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've heard a couple of pretty cool stories from the regional hospital here in Sydney, from a couple of the nurses. It's pretty intense. The stuff that happens that no one really talks about. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a common thing is deathbed visions. Have you guys heard of the deathbed vision?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of goes along with, you know, people, a dying person will see like a loved one or a friend that's already deceased.
Yeah.
Will come for them at the time of death. And they'll start seeing them. You know, the patient will start talking to them like nothing's going on. And they even may become more alert than they were. And then sometimes people sitting next to people visiting the person who's dying will sometimes witness the same thing. I think they call that a shared death experience. Usually deathbed visions, but the family member may experience the same thing. They may actually see the deceased loved one too. So
wow.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be kind of like an EVP. We've had EVPs before where we've had, you know, 10 people in the room and everybody's experienced the same EVP in real time without having to go home and listen to it on a recorder sort of thing. So I believe that definitely could happen, especially in a situation like that where someone's passing, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I did have a lady, let me tell you guys real quick about as far as deathbed visions. This is before I really was into the investigating. I had a lady who was passing away and we had made her come for care and I went to check on her. She didn't have any family. But we had, she had a advanced or living will where she said she didn't want to be on life support and those things. So she got really sick, and we decided to make her comfort care. And I went to check on her, and I walked in the room, and it's one of those memories that you can just never forget. Like, even I'm thinking about now, I can see this lady laying there, and she's looking at the ceiling, and she's just got this big bright look in her eyes, a big bright smile, and just looking at the ceiling. And I was like, it was there enough that it made me ask her. I'm like, what in the world are you seeing? And she's like, don't you see the angels coming for me? I even looked up. I'm like, what? And then the nurse walked in, and the nurse was like, and I said, she's seeing angels. And the nurse looks up, and we both walked out, me and the nurse. And I go, I think she's going to pass away here pretty soon. And about an hour or two later, she died. But She was, for all intents and purposes, she was seeing something that was, it was pretty amazing to kind of walk in on that. So
wow,
that's cool.
That's really cool.
So what do you think happens to our conscience when we die? Do you think, I guess I could phrase it this way. What do you think we're talking to? When you go on a paranormal investigation, do you think we're talking to spirits that are stuck here? Do you think it's a multi-universe kind of thing where it's, the multi-universe theory where it's different. Yeah. So do you think it could just be, we're in a room and I ask a question, what's your name? And then I answer myself because I'm in another dimension and I hear someone in my head go, what was that? And then I'm picking up an EVP. Or do you think it's what do you think it is when we pass away? Or what do you think ghosts are, I guess you could say? Yeah,
no, it's a good question. Quickly about your EVP thing, there's different theories. There's a guy, I think John Sable, he does investigations here, or he does a more scientific approach to paranormal investigating. And he talks about a theory that we haunt ourselves, like what you're saying, that when you get an EVP that you're picking up on, you're projecting out into the environment. So that's a curious thing. If you had to pin me down, and it seems consciousness survives, right? Consciousness is just another word for our soul. Consciousness is what we use in the academic parapsychology type, research and that kind of thing. So it's basically our soul. So I think, when you catch these EVPs, it has to be somebody's soul that's we're catching, because these voices are pretty clear. That's, in fact, EVP for me is one of my most convincing things that always shocks the heck out of me. And it's something you can play back for people. But I think when our body dies, I think our consciousness lives on, or our soul lives on. And, and our soul and consciousness is, it's everything that's not physical, about us. It's our thoughts and our, and our life energy and all that. So I think it lives on when you look at, either as a paranormal investigator or as a physician that's kind of reviewed and had different experiences. I think it lives on. Now, the tricky thing I don't know how to explain very well is why does it seem like some souls are stuck in a particular place and other ones don't seem stuck? And then there's the whole idea of this residual energy that, where it's just playing over and over again. It's a memory in that particular location, just playing over and over again. So I think that it seems that some souls can cross over to the afterlife, wherever that is. And then once they cross over, they're able to come back and forth. Then it seems like some souls just don't cross over. Now, I don't know if that's a choice or if they're stuck here until something else happens. When you look at near-death experiences and you read about them and hear about them and all that, people often get to a point where they have a choice. They're out of their body having all these experiences, and they get to a place where you can either stay here and cross over to this, or you can go back to your body. About 50% of people that have near-death experiences have a choice to come back. And then some people opt to come back, and some people are told to go back. So it seems like there's some choice in the matter. So say you die right now and you realize you're dead, it seems like maybe you have a choice to stick around. Maybe you don't want to go on because you're afraid of what's beyond or those kind of things. So, but I think, if you go to a haunted location, you're getting an intelligent interaction. To me, it's somebody's soul is hanging out there. I don't think
something's happening.
Oh yeah,
I don't think
sure.
we're projecting. I could be wrong. I don't think we're projecting it into the environment. Well, what do you guys think?
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I believe in residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings, but I also believe in the multi-universe theory. Yeah. Where it could be, it could be a certain time of the year where you're at, we go to the Fortress Louisburg all the time. It's a fort in Cape Breton where the English and French fought multiple times, and there's the ground out there is soaked in blood. there's so much death and there's so much disease, and the place is haunted. So we go out there, but there's people saying that you go there in April. It's either April or May, I can't remember. But on certain nights you can hear swords hitting together.
Right.
Because it could have been a sword fight in the middle of the town that night, but you can only get it on certain nights of the year. And other nights of the year you can hear cannon fire. And other nights, so that's got to be residual, right? Or is it the veil is just thinner, and you can experience it in just those nights?
And is it the universes? Yeah, is it the parallel universes coming together, or parallel dimensions coming together? Yeah. I think there's something to that. When you look at the quantum physics and all this stuff now they're doing with like the Higgs field. I don't know if you guys are, the Higgs field and the Higgs boson, and then this dark matter, dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a whole another realm that's around us that we can't see. I forget what the numbers were. I actually did a post on Haunted MD about this on my Facebook page. Like a very small percentage is what we see. A very small percentage of the universe is what we can see and sense, and everything else we can't really sense. And there's all these different fields. So I often wonder if our consciousness doesn't transition into that, either to that other, that Higgs field or to another dimension. It seems like it's possible there's stacked up dimensions or parallel dimensions and all that. And I think that it seems like our consciousness will go into those other worlds, and they seem to kind of come back and forth. And I don't know if is it timing where the worlds are close enough together? Is there an ability to go back and forth? Can you choose to do that, or do you got to wait to certain times? But I agree with you. I mean, on investigations, there's some nights you won't catch anything, and then there's other nights you go back the next night, and it's like crazy. And I've heard like even like footsteps, some of those seem to be residual. But yeah, I've heard like the cannon fire and the screams and stuff like that seems to be residual, but it's not always there, and it's curious. But yeah, it seems like there's either a field, some kind of energy field around us that we can't sense, or it's a dimensional thing, multi-dimensions. So
cool.
Yeah, some of them are pretty crazy. Like that.
How are we doing for time, Jeff?
I haven't got a warning yet.
Oh, good. I could talk to Dr. Molnar all night.
Well, I've been rattling on here.
No, this is fantastic.
We'll have to get you back on another one because we don't have enough time. 30 to 40.
Absolutely. Yeah, whatever you guys want to do, I'll be glad to come back on again.
Awesome. But that's what, Doug, I was going to mention about the EVP. First night we ever investigated, 2014, was June, I think. And we went to a place not too far from here called Blackett's Lake. And I asked the question, where are you from? I think it was. And almost immediately, a man's voice came back and said Blackett's Lake. And no matter which way, immediately you start trying to disprove it, right? You try to debunk it, but I couldn't. And that was the very first one we ever got. And I think I was hooked after that.
Yeah, that keeps me going too, man. In fact, the other day I was goofing around at our office, and I was doing some charting and all that, and I just set up a couple pieces of equipment real quick, and I caught an EVP on there. I think I said something about the effect of I have to go back to work, and this male voice goes, "At work, be more efficient." And I was like, and I didn't even really. That's what this EVP said. I was like, "What?"
He was calling you out.
Well, yeah, because when I work, sometimes I start like trying to catch evidence of that stuff instead of working. Yeah. And before I know it, I'm running late and I got to hurry up and get done. And it's like spirits are telling me to be more efficient.
So did you get bitten by the gear bug like we all did when we first started? Like I spent too much money on a whole bunch of gadgets that just sit in my the lock cases now, or the hard cases. You don't even take them out anymore. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you convince yourself you need it, right? You're like, I got to have this, man. I got to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay. I was just wondering, because it seems to happen to everybody when they first start off. You jump online and you go, well, they had that on TV, so I have to have that on TV. I remember saying to Jason one time, I was like, God, that thermal camera that they use, we should really look up one of those and see if we can get one. They're $30,000 for a really good FLIR camera.
Yeah.
That I know on television.
It's easy. In fact, my girlfriend's like, she's like, you got to stop buying equipment now. I'm like, yeah, you're right, baby. You're right.
Yeah, and that's right. And you don't need a whole lot. Like you have stuff, and you really don't need all that much. Like we go, Doug, and we take the spirit box, just like a recorder.
In my I'm a photographer, so I'll bring a lot of my photography stuff.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'll set that up.
Yeah.
But other than that, most
much.
of the stuff we have, we take the Mel meter.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty much it. Because you
A lot
don't
of it sits
need,
home.
a lot of it just stays home. We don't take it.
Yeah.
So is there any places in the world that you'd like to go to investigate? Give me like your top, like a place you're just dying to get to.
You know, I'd love to go out to, is it Waverly Hills out
Yeah,
there?
sanitarium.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to go
Let
out there
us
and do
know. We'll
that.
come.
I know. Hey, have you guys heard of Hinsdale House?
It sounds
No?
familiar.
Hinsdale up in, it's in New York. It's a small farmhouse, but they supposedly had an exorcism there and all that stuff. It's been on a lot of different shows.
I think
I'm
I
actually
seen
going
that on
up
a show.
there. I'm heading up there next weekend, April 22nd, 23rd, 24th. I'm going up with a team to help me work with them.
Lucky.
Keep us posted on that.
Yeah, I will, man. Well, especially if we get some good evidence. Trying to think, man. Just it's probably the West Virginia, the penitentiary. There seems to be a lot of activity. Probably try to get out west a little bit. Where they wrote the Shining, Stanley Motel Hotel.
Yeah.
Get out that way. It'd be cool to go overseas and do those kind of things. See some of the castles and where you guys live too, the ports. Where you guys are at would be cool too.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a ton of history in Cape Breton. Cape Breton.
Oh yeah.
Just if you Google Cape Breton, you wouldn't believe the amount of history we have here, right? So
Yeah.
I always wanted to do Eastern State Penitentiary. That was always
we
bucket
visited
list
there.
place.
We didn't investigate. But we did like a tour of that place. It's cool.
I want to go to Gettysburg.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome, too.
I've been there.
I'm a Civil War nut, man. If there's a show on about the Civil War, I'm watching it.
Yeah, you'd love it, man. That place,
I'm
you
obsessed.
just feel it in the air, man. When you go to the battlefield, you can just, even as like a skeptical person, you can just feel like, you can feel that something's there and something, and you can feel some sadness, but then you feel, like relief in a way too. But you can feel it in the air.
Yeah, we'll talk
Stuff
about
like
a
that.
place with death, right? So much death.
Yeah.
Doug.
Yeah.
Talk about a ground soaked in blood. Go to
Mhm.
Gettysburg.
Yeah, Gettysburg is cool.
Yeah, it's on my list for sure. Yeah,
Oh, I'd love to go there.
100%. Get me
Right
on
on.
a plane. Whenever Corona goes away.
I know that's a thing, man. Like, even I'm going to do this investigation up in New York, and I'm a little nervous too, just go traveling. But I got vaccinated, so I've had the vaccine, and and just wear a mask. And I try to wear a mask and all that stuff and play it safe. You guys get vaccinated yet, or?
We have to wait. Right now, we're doing I think it's 65 and older.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on by
I think on end of the month or beginning of May, I think I can have mine. At this point, I'll take one in each arm and
You're done with
for
it.
the best.
I'm so tired of this. I just want to have my vaccine and just try to, like we have an event coming up July 16th and 17th at the Fortress. It's our first event in a couple of years over a year because of COVID.
Yeah.
And you're excited, but you don't want to get too excited because our cases could jump and public health could say it's too dangerous. And of course, we take COVID extremely seriously. So it's not like I'd be upset, but I want to do the event and I want people to go out and see it and have fun and just get out of their houses, right? Because it's been such a hard go, right?
How are the cases? How are the cases up by you guys? Are they coming down?
Oh, we have none today.
Oh wow!
Nova Scotia, I think.
What's
Nova
our active
Scotia's
case total? 30 or 40?
I don't think it's only 24, isn't it?
Oh,
Or
really?
maybe it is 30.
Yeah.
I can't remember, Jason, to be honest.
Not
But
very much.
We had 3 cases today, but none of the people live in Nova Scotia. But they're Nova Scotians, so they added them to our list. So we don't.
Wow.
But I think Nova Scotia is one of the most safest places in the world to live right now.
Yeah.
Where we are.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, we're doing good. But I just want to give you the okay. I know this is a 1 in a million shot, but if I ever end up in your care and I'm passing, you have to set up all your gear and document the whole thing.
Absolutely, man.
And then send it to me and I'll post it.
And then send it to Jason and we'll post it on our Facebook page.
Well, it's funny. You guys must be psychic because I've been kicking around the idea. I just got to figure out how to make it work. But so where I'm at now, we have a hospice unit that's part of our building, and I've been tempted to do a study with the equipment, like talk to the nurses and the people that run the hospice unit, and talk to the families and get get all the permissions, but say, hey, how do you feel if I was present when your loved one passes, and actually take in some of the equipment, take in the K2s and the different cameras and the SLS and all that kind of stuff, and just see, because that would be incredible if you could actually capture something leaving the body like that.
Oh yeah.
So
you use an SLS?
Yeah, I have it. I actually got 2 of them. Talk about.
See, I'm actually buying one off of Heather Rand. She must well say she's part of our team now.
Yeah.
She has an extra one, so I'm going to take it off of her. I want one so bad. She used one a couple times now. A couple of the place we went to. It's amazing. I don't understand how it's working. Like, we put it against a wall, just a wall. There's no paint on the wall. It was a concrete wall in the basement. And there was a stick person moving around, and I would say, raise your left hand, whoop, it would go up in the air. Yep. Raise your right hand, whoop, up in the air. I don't get it. I just
I believe it, man. I believe it too. Well, I actually have on my Haunted MD Facebook page. I don't think I have it on Instagram. I should repost it on Instagram. I have a couple different clips where I asked it to touch the K. I had a K2 meter and a REM pod and a Mel meter or whatever. And I was catching a figure on the SLS. I'm like, and I said to it, can you touch the K2 meter? And you see it reach towards the K2 meter, and the K2 meter starts going off. Wow. So yeah, I'm a believer. A lot of people around here are kind of getting skeptical about them, but I think you have to, like any piece of equipment, you got to understand like what's a positive and what's not a positive, and and all that kind of stuff. But to me, it seems to be sensing something that we can't see. And when you get that kind of interaction with intelligence, we're following commands and touching other equipment and and validation like that, it's hard to dismiss that. Even if you want to be a total skeptic, it's hard to throw that stuff out.
2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should probably end it here then. So I just want to say thanks again, Dr. Molnar. I mean, this was amazing.
Sure,
I would love to sit here all night and pick your brain on everything that you experience as a physician and an investigator. I know I butchered that intro because I was so nervous to talk to you all day. It's been eating away all day. I was pacing. My wife was like, "Will you settle down?" I was pacing the house from 8 o'clock to 8:30, going, "I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna mess this up."
You did fine, Doug. You did fine, buddy.
Yeah, you did great. It was a great interview, man.
Oh, this is incredible. I'm so happy that you did it. I reached out that day and I was like, you know what? If you don't ask, you'll never know. And I've been watching your videos on Instagram. That's where I found you. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask him, give it a shot and see if he'll come on. And you answered like right away, yes, I'll do it. I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Wicked. Yeah. We're less than a minute. So Dr. Molnar, thank you very much for coming on.
Sure thing. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And please come back and update us on that investigation you got coming up.
Sure, I will.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Perfect. We'll keep in touch, eh?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Take care. Have a good evening.
Take care. See you later. Stay safe.
All right.
Take
You
care.
too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.